Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. I'm going to keep this video unlisted. I know not everyone on the YouTube channel is going to enjoy watching the Q&A, but just for those of you who do, you enjoy this kind of format, this is something that I do regularly on Patreon, usually at least once a week. I've done over 70 Q&A videos so far. So if you enjoy this format, feel free to check out the Patreon. There's an archive of all those 70 plus Q&As, plus a few other exclusive videos as well. So if that's your cup of tea. And by the way, I also actually, a lot of the ideas and seeds that are sort of planted for some of my videos actually spring up from questions asked on Patreon. So oftentimes you'll see a video that drops on the YouTube channel a week or two or a month or 6 months after somebody's already brought up this idea there. So you want to get some of those early insights about what I think about some of those topics. Feel free. Not here to plug the Patreon too hard, but I just wanted to point that out. If you enjoy this Q&A, this is literally the kind of stuff you see on Patreon every week. Let's get into it. Where should the next two Tesla factories be? Asia and Europe. Definitely needs another one in Asia ASAP, and I think that once Giga Berlin's up and running, there's still going to be another need for more in Europe, so probably another factory in Europe. Almost certain. I mean, maybe there's an India solar factory. There's still some rumors there. I doubt it, but possibly. But I think it makes a whole, in terms of vehicle factories, definitely Asia, even though Shanghai's expanding, and definitely Europe, even though Berlin is still going up at the moment. You have a time machine. You go back and chat with your 12-year-old self. What do you say? I would probably advise my 12-year-old self to start on the path of personal development, reading books to try and learn skills, knowledge, these kind of things, and also encourage myself to try starting businesses sooner. Do you own any crypto? I do, but not a significant amount, and no, I don't own any Dogecoin. How did psychedelics help you discover Tesla's potential? So, to be honest, I can't remember exactly what year it was. Sometime after the Model S had launched, maybe 2013 or 14, I actually dedicated a few weekends in a row to taking LSD solely to think about the opportunity in Tesla. I was also, mind you, I did this for other things too, including strategizing for some of my real estate purchase. But it's a great tool for me to sort of get a fresh perspective and connect dots that I wouldn't necessarily connect. And I spent a number of weekends sort of diving down that rabbit hole with the assistance of LSD, solely to just sort of think about the opportunity there. And it was worthwhile. I mean, each of those trips I'm spending like 7, 8, 9, 10 plus hours just sort of focused on that. Very, very helpful. I gained some really key insights and was able to look at the opportunity and sort of connect a few dots that I don't really think I would have connected, at least not so quickly otherwise. Or maybe I'm just imagining that. Maybe it would have been totally fine if I just sat down with a piece of paper and a pen, didn't take any LSD and thought about it. But between you and me, I doubt it. Is it right to prioritize yourself in life? Where's the line between being selfish and making good decisions for yourself? Look, I'm going to be honest, if you're not number one, you're a fool. There's a great quote from Jim Rohn. What does it say? I'll take care of myself for you if you take care of yourself for me. It's just like the analogy when the oxygen masks come down like on a plane. It's like the instruction is, right, make sure you get your mask on before helping others. I really think that's an important thing. I think a lot of people, they're coming from a good place, but it's bordering on moronic to be like, focus outward too much on other people when you're not really focusing on yourself, because as that quote says, right, it's kind of important to make sure you're in a good place first, because then once you're right, I think then you can have a much more positive impact on those around you, at least in my experience. And you should be selfish. Like, yeah, I want to make sure, right, it's dumb, it's foolish, it's silly not to be selfish. And I don't mean selfish in a negative way to the detriment of others, but I mean you should really be focusing on yourself first as the biggest priority, and always. And that goes especially for people in relationships too, You should still always be number one. For guys, your mission and purpose, that should be number one. Your wife, your partner, number two, and children, number three. There's a hierarchy there, and I'll stand by that till the day I die. That is the most important place to focus your energy and attention. So make sure you're right first. How do you feel cannabis has impacted who you are as a person, and if it has contributed to your success? I mean, apart from the obvious, like I have chronic insomnia, so if I didn't smoke weed, I'd hate my fucking life. I'd be depressed all the time because I wasn't getting enough sleep. It'd be terrible, right? It's literally a useful tool just for sleep induction. That alone would have a major impact on who I am. But honestly, in terms of the main benefits I get from cannabis, it just helps with creative thinking, connecting dots. I'm a very intellectual person. I spend a lot of time sort of thinking through things, right? Analyzing, etc. That's just who I am. And it's a really useful tool for me to do that. If you had to choose between Dojo as a service and full self-driving subscriptions, which one do you think will generate the most revenue for Tesla in the next decade, and why? That's hard to call. It really is going to depend on whether or not full self-driving becomes commoditized. I don't know how that plays out, but I'll say this. There's definitely a potential for Dojo to be bigger in terms of total revenue and profitability even than the full self-driving software over the longer term. That is a definite possibility. So I don't see the risk of Dojo being commoditized, whereas full self-driving, I can kind of see that maybe. Did being sober allow you to brainstorm today's video about uses for Tesla's cameras? Actually, to be honest, dude, I've got a gigantic list of videos that I've thought through. Like, there's about 70 of them, and this is one of them. So at the moment, I'm just working my way through that list. I've been thinking about this since before the channel started. There was something, I saw an interview a few years ago with Peter Diamandis in 2017, actually. I think it's got a fireside chat with him. I can remember pretty specifically. And he mentioned about that, and I'm like, fuck, he's got it. There's something here. I don't know exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of, there's going to be trillions of sensors everywhere, autonomous vehicles, and as soon as he said that, the penny dropped for me. So, but yeah, I got a lot of these ideas sort of backed up that I haven't really discussed publicly. Some of them come up from time to time on Patreon, as I mentioned. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm pretty dry in terms of the creativity in the hotel room at the moment. Just working my way through a pre-existing list. What are you going to do with all your Tesla money when you finally do sell years and years from now? Well, to be technically correct, I don't plan on selling. I'll actually borrow against that stock, capitalize the interest. I'll get a pretty low rate, probably around 1.5% or something. Just capitalize interest so it's not out of pocket and use that capital that way. And then whenever I die or whatever, some of those assets have to be sold to pay off the remaining debt. But yeah, my plan is not actually to have to sell. Like, why would I pay capital gains tax when instead I go to a private banker at JP Morgan Chase or something and just be like, what's up? Let me borrow against this up to 50% and go from there, because I don't pay capital gains. The money's going to go further. Are you really on the spectrum? I'd love to hear your story. Yeah, dude, I'm autistic as fuck. So I guess the story, I kind of realized I was on the spectrum years ago. I was reading one day about all sorts of different conditions because, like, I'm just a nerd. I like to learn about stuff. I'm reading about bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, rah. I get up to autism. I'm like, fuck, that's me. Do this online autism quotient quiz, and I'm like, okay, I meet the threshold. Cool, I'm on the spectrum. And that's literally the last time I thought about it. I'm like, okay, I was like, well, what does it really mean? Okay, cool, that's it. Years and years later, like maybe last year actually, one of my Patreon supporters, we were chatting, and she and I were talking, and I mentioned I was autistic or something like that, right? And then she went and did some homework and like found this YouTube channel and sent me this video, and I started watching the video. I'm like, fuck, this video was so valuable. I learned so much about myself. This is useful stuff I can apply. Went down the rabbit hole, literally watched every video on the guy's channel. I think it's, what's it called? Asperger's from the Inside. The guy's name is Paul, right? And I just got so much insight from them. Like, fuck, this is valuable. So I started reading books and have been learning a ton about how it affects me recently. And it's just been so useful in managing my energy. Like, there's a direct correlation between my output on YouTube and my understanding of myself, how to manage my energy better, all that sort of stuff. So super useful. And yeah, I low-key can see people now. I'm just like, I can spot an autist without... There's people in the Tesla community that I know for a fact are on the spectrum who probably don't know it. I don't really think it's appropriate to just go, hey, you're autistic, but I could name names and I will be right. And maybe some of them have been diagnosed, maybe some of them haven't, but it's pretty clear to spot once you've seen a person and interacted with them in certain levels and certain ways, to just cut to the chase and notice it. So yeah, I'm very autistic. And by the way, my audience skews a bit more autistic than usual, being interested in numbers a little bit, being interested in engineering, these kind of things. And so there's a disproportionate number, and plus it's very male dominated as well. There's a disproportionate number of people on the spectrum in my audience. And I could name off the top of my head right now at least half a dozen people in the Tesla community, Twitter and YouTube, etc., that you folks would know of who are on the spectrum, who probably don't know it, but I do. And no, I'm not going to name those names. Like I said, I don't think it's really the right thing to do, but yeah. All right, next question. What are you going to do? Oh, sorry, I missed something. Hang on a minute. What do you do for fun outside work? To be honest, I mean, work is the fun part. So for those that don't know, I retired in 2018, financially independent, no longer ever needing to work again, right? I had enough money. I solved the money problem. So what I'm doing today is not the result of me needing to earn money or feeling obliged to work, but because I want to be doing it. So I get so much joy, value, and meaning out of creating these videos that it's all I want to do. I mean, I do have hobbies and stuff outside. Lots of boring stuff from the outside, meditate and read, get some exercise, spend time in nature. I'm a pretty spiritual dude, not religious, but quite spiritual as well. And I want to be real clear, no hooky-pooky stuff there, but just really like to connect with nature and sort of, bathe in gratitude and these kind of things. But I mean, some of the biggest sources of joy for me, it's very simple stuff, man. Just hang out with friends. I also like to spend time with beautiful women, but both of those things, I don't really put that stuff on my social media. I'm not insecure or trying to flex like, hey, I'm at this restaurant, I'm with this hot girl, blah, blah, blah. So that sort of stuff stays behind the scenes. But that's pretty much my life. A little bit of socializing, some meditating, reading, a little bit of stuff, time in nature, some spiritual things, and then creating content, which I don't see as work. It's like my mission, my purpose. Because as I said, I don't need to be making these videos. I literally am, for the last 3 years since I retired, I've spent like 98, 99% of my time doing literally what I wanted to be doing with my time, not doing things because I had to. So yeah, it's been fun, but yeah, this is like, I don't really view it as work for me. It's like my mission. I love it. What are your political views, and do they align with Elon's? Ooh, interesting. So I can confirm that Elon and I are on the same page politically. I can't talk about why and how I know that, but I will say that what I just told you is a fact. I won't say anything further. How psychoactive drugs have changed you and how you see the world and how you think differently. I kind of alluded to before, you know, like every moment now for me is just like, it's imbued with gratitude and meaning and awareness that wasn't previously there. I mean, I became a much better person. So some of you guys probably haven't heard this story. I've told it on Patreon a lot. I took LSD 7 weeks in a row for the first time. And I had a plan. I wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to trip on acid. I had a very meticulous plan. I'm going to think about this, do this, experience this. Like I literally had plans of exactly what to do. I had a checklist right for my trips, which sounds like that's probably an autistic thing to do as well. But it was very useful. And I was concerned, like I didn't want to get in trouble with the law, get fired from my job. This was like, you know, this was a long time ago. We're talking like close to a decade ago. And I didn't want to put anything at risk there. So I didn't tell anyone, even my close friends, that I was doing it. But without me mentioning it to anybody, all of the people close to me, including colleagues as well as close friends, started saying, dude, what the fuck happened to you, man? You're so much kinder, nicer, more positive, like just so many positive things without being prompted. They didn't know I'd taken acid, but all of them noticed a positive change in me, in the way I was showing up in the world. And that really made me take a step back and think, fuck, dude, I really have changed in a positive way here, because nobody knows what I've done, and they're all telling me that they've noticed that I've changed for the better. So I've become definitely a better person as a result as well. And there's just such a rich sense of meaning and purpose and gratitude there that's hard to put into words. Those of you who've had some of those spiritual moments, you'll understand. I mean, taking LSD is among the most important and profound and meaningful experiences of my life. And some of the insights and meaning and awareness, it doesn't go away. You know, once you've kind of had that insight or made that connection or had that feeling, you know, it doesn't seem to go away. So, yeah, I mean, in short, LSD has completely enriched my life and made me a better person in many, many ways. And I don't want to be suggesting, I'm not advocating go and drop some acid tomorrow, because one, I'm very unusual. I have a very high tolerance. Two, it's not going to affect everyone in the same way. But for me, it was a very, very useful tool. And I also I don't really have much natural self-awareness. It's very hard for me to look inward and figure stuff out. I have to bash my head against the wall sometimes, read 100 books about it, take some acid, do some ayahuasca, whatever it is, whatever it takes. But I'm willing to do the work, because the more that I learn about myself, you know, the better I can show up in the world, and the more effective and productive I can be, plus the more meaning and fulfillment I find. So, but yeah, I want to be really clear, I'm not advocating just go out and drop acid, because results may vary. Have you ever been snowboarding? Do you wanna? Actually, this is a really interesting question. We're just talking about LSD. I have been snowboarding. I went with some colleagues previously, and this is a weird story, but it's true. I already knew previously that LSD, mushrooms also actually, can improve things like vision, but more importantly, balance and proprioception. So the first time I ever snowboarded, here's what happened. We wake up in a snow cabin. We'd gone away for the weekend. I had some acid. I offered to everyone else, and they're like, come on, dude, what the fuck? And I'm like, I know, but I just got to be kind. I just got to offer you guys. So I took a tab of acid. An hour later, we're getting our very first lesson, and the snowboard instructor's like, okay, who's never snowboarded before? I'm like, me. He's like, okay, cool, great. So very first time on a snowboard. I've never skied. I've never even skateboarded or surfed or anything. The guy's showing me all these things. And after a few minutes, the instructor looked at me. He's like, dude, do you skateboard or something? And I'm like, nah. He goes, oh, so you surf? And I'm like, no. And he's like, I've never seen somebody take on a snowboard for the first time and like not fall flat on their ass immediately. You haven't fallen over yet. I've been watching you. What's going on, dude? I'm like, oh, I'm tripping balls, dude. And he's like, huh? I'm like, it helps you balance. And he thought I was completely insane. But anyway, I snowboarded for 2 days, right? I didn't fall over. I didn't fall off my snowboard from the very first lesson I ever got until the end of the day. I didn't fall once, which I know that sounds completely unbelievable, and you're like, okay, you're full of shit right now, but this actually occurred. And the reason for this is LSD literally enhances balance and proprioception, so I was just totally in the zone. It was an amazing, amazing experience. Had a hell of a lot of fun. Had a really great time. Yeah, it was super fun. So I enjoy snowboarding. My knees were pretty done in after a couple of days because I was going pretty bananas there, but yeah, had an amazing, amazing time. Very fun. I don't get to snowboard much. I don't really live near snow, but definitely something I'll do more of in the future as well. Where the F do you live? No comment. security risk. Too many of you crazy creepers. Now, I really mean that too. I'm not trying to like be too much on the low key. I'm in Sydney now, but I don't get too specific with this shit. You know, you guys ask my birthday, I'm not telling you. You ask where I live, not telling you. Just because there's a few crazies, well-meaning crazies, but still crazies out there. So, yeah, got to be careful here. What will you say to Gordon Johnson if you ever see him in real life? I'd just ask who's paying you. Like, that's it. Do you do mushrooms? I have. I mean, not super regularly, but I have, yes. Thoughts on religions. Patently ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous. Like, to the point of ridicule. Like, ridiculous. But harmless in the minds of some and extremely dangerous in the minds of others. A few people might challenge that. What do you mean dangerous? Yeah, right, okay. Kill some people that don't believe in your God and get a free trip to paradise. Some virgins, milk, honey. Oh, you haven't heard that story? Okay, how about another one? How about you stone your neighbor to death if you find out he's gay? I could keep going on. Some people actually take this stuff literally, and it can cause really good people to do absolutely terrible things. Overall, religion is a net negative, and humanity will be far better off when religions go extinct. I'm not saying that every religious person's a bad person, but I am saying that they believe something that's obviously ridiculous, which you can infer a lot about somebody's ability to take on evidence and make reason-based decisions just based on that belief system. This is a fact, right? Some people argue they're getting triggered and butthurt, the religious people right now, butt's tingling, I know, but it's true. I can tell something about how your brain operates if you are religious. That is a fact. Okay, unquestionable fact. Because the standard of it's just, and also, like I want to be said, you know, some people it's totally harmless, and some people it brings a lot of value to their lives. Like, I will not lie, right? People who are religious, you know, when people die and there's grieving, they suffer less because they think somebody's gone on to the cloudy man in the sky or whatever the religion says, or they'll be reincarnated. But the amount of suffering and most wars on Earth were religious based. It's just caused a huge amount of suffering in the world, and I'll be glad to see religions go extinct. And by the way, there is a direct correlation between people having access to the internet, aka information, and declining belief in religion. You can literally go track this. It's hilarious. I made this connection. I've never seen anybody else talk about this. Maybe someone's done a study by now, but I connected the dots years ago because I thought to myself, hang on a minute. Because this is what happened to me, right? I was raised in a religious household and I had some questions there, but by the time I got internet access in 93, 94, I started poking around, and I know that's very early days, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is all horseshit. Thanks to the internet. Helpful for me to answer some of those questions that the pastor couldn't, and this kind of stuff. You know, when we get taught in Sunday school, like Noah's Ark, I'm like, hang on, but how do they keep the temperature right for the animals from the desert and the Antarctica? And like, just stop asking questions, dude. Like, so I had a lot of questions along the way, and I thought to myself, you know what? I think as more people get access to information, more people ask questions, get some answers, and realize that what they've been told to believe and indoctrinated to believe is complete and utter horseshit. And that turns out to be the case. So I think over time, this will continue, and religions are going on the way out anyway. And again, I want to be clear, like religions, a sense of community, there is some positive there as well, but man, oh man, they're a net negative for sure. Are you going to move to Austin permanently? If I can get US permanent residency, I will. Now, this is a big if, but I'm applying for this soon. So if I can, that is the plan. But when I say move to Austin permanently, that'll be one of my home bases, but I don't think I'll just stay put in Austin. What's your Myers-Briggs personality? INTJ, I'm pretty sure. I don't even know what that shit means. Introvert, something, but I'm pretty sure it's INTJ because I remember those letters. Where were you for the last 3 years and why? I was backpacking. I was on sabbatical in South America mostly. I just wanted to have space to figure out where to from here after I retired in 2018. And I found my answer. I did the ayahuasca ceremonies and figured out, you know, biggest impact, most meaning and purpose, YouTube channel, and that's where we're at. As I was saying earlier, right, I no longer work. I'm really on a mission and I enjoy it. So, yeah. Any tips for people on the spectrum? Yeah, man, just learn as much as you possibly can about how it affects you. That's it. It's very useful. Just read books, including Tony Attwood's Complete Guide to Asperger's, plus every book you can find, some male and female sharing their perspectives. There was one autism book I just couldn't put up because the author was such a fucking woke moron. I wanted to vomit. Like, a horrible book. But other than that, pretty much everything you'll find on Audible in particular, it's worth reading because you'll gain some insight and perspective, and it can be useful and apply in your own life. What's the best way to do ayahuasca? Is there some sort of service or shaman you recommend? Yeah, I personally would never, ever do ayahuasca outside of a traditional shamanic setting. And I know this sounds a bit nutty, but out and not anywhere but in the jungles as well. There's just something, the environment just makes such a huge difference. And if you've done ayahuasca, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I went to a place called Spirit Quest Sanctuary in Peru. I'm not sure if it's still operational because of, you know, the Rona. But I would highly recommend that place if they're still operating. I had an amazing time. Can you throw your weight on the Tesla PR argument again? Yeah, I did this somewhere. Maybe not on the YouTube channel. Could have been on Patreon, but I don't. So there's two camps. There's people that are like, this is bad, they need PR, and there's people that are like, I thought a little bit more, and they don't need PR. And I know that's a pretty abrasive thing to say, but I mean it. Let me explain. Tesla is production constrained. Okay, we can all agree on that. They sell everything they make. The purpose of having PR would be to counter some of the damage that could be done. Say, for example, if Tesla wasn't production constrained, they weren't selling everything they made, there'd be a problem. It'd be a very good idea to have PR to counter the FUD, because the FUD can effectively cause somebody to believe false things about Tesla, which will then cause them to not be interested in buying a Tesla product. I acknowledge this point. I want to be really clear, because a lot of people they can't get past this. Their brain just stops, I think, and they're done. I acknowledge that FUD is detrimental to the opinions and beliefs and therefore actions of consumers relating to Tesla. It will cause people to not buy Tesla products, and these memories could stay in their mind for 10 years, 20 years, their entire lifetime, meaning they never ever buy a Tesla product. But here's the thing. In my opinion, don't have a time machine, but I'm relatively confident in this. Tesla will remain production constrained for years to come. By the time they reach a point where they are no longer production constrained, there will be tens of millions of Teslas on roads. And practically everyone on Earth will have had the experience to firsthand actually be in the product and experience the product for themselves. Just like today, literally everyone on Earth knows Apple make great products, the same will be true of Tesla by the time that they reach the point where they're no longer production constrained. So here's the deal. The FUD does short-term damage, but because Tesla's production constrained, no problem. And by the time that Tesla's production constraint goes away and they can actually make more than the demand is, it's not going to be a problem, because the FUD will no longer have any impact, because people will have experienced a product for themselves. And yes, there'll be exceptions, but two or three dumbasses on the outskirts who heard a headline 10 years ago and don't ever buy a Tesla because of that, we don't need to worry about them. The majority of consumers will have their a one-on-one experience with a Tesla product sometime between now and when they're no longer production constrained. Therefore, PR a waste of time. And Elon knows about the YouTubers and the Twitter folks, and I agree with Elon. It's so funny because Elon and I mean, maybe it's just being on the spectrum, right? Or being physics thinking, I don't know. We just, it's so often Elon thinks a certain way. I'm like, duh, like I know exactly why it makes sense. And other people just can't seem to cross that bridge. But to me, it's just absolute insanity, okay? I want to acknowledge you, right? Some people just seem to like, it's bad that people are saying things that are untrue about Tesla and people believe that. I agree. Irrelevant, because it's not hurting Tesla's ability to sell every product they make. Again, first principles, right? Doesn't matter. So, and if the production constraint wasn't there, this would be a completely different story, and I would be hounding Tesla to have a PR team to counter the FUD. But as I said, it's unnecessary. I think people are just getting tripped up. They're not thinking deep enough layers. They're going, oh, it's really bad. People won't buy a Tesla because they heard the FUD. True, but it doesn't matter. They're still selling everything. By the time that's not the case, everyone will have experienced a Tesla, or enough people that it's not going to matter anyway. Who cuts your hair? Your mum usually does when I sleep over. Has being famous changed your life? Lol. I'll tell you when it happens, dude. I'll answer then. Yeah. If you have sorry, I'm going to have to translate because this is a bit scattered, the English here. So if you have a long rod from Earth to Mars with both planets not moving, that you can press a button on Mars, how long would it take for the button to be pressed after you started applying pressure on Earth? Okay, so I know exactly what you're talking about. A big, gigantic, rigid rod, basically. How long if you poked until it hit Mars? So, this is funny. When I was quite young, somewhere in primary school, elementary school for the US folks, I thought I was a genius and I'd somehow figured out how to hack the speed of light. Because I thought, can't you just make a really stiff rod and just poke stuff instantly? Or like on the other side of the universe? And I thought I'd fix this. I'm telling people, but it turns out somebody rained on my parade. It turns out there's a thing called the speed of sound through an object, which is how fast the motion will actually propagate from atom to atom. That actually takes time. There's a limitation. Different materials have a different speed of sound through the material, but that is the limiting factor in terms of time. I don't know what the actual thing is, but that's the thing to look for. Because I was thinking like, hey, I've figured it out. But yeah, there's actually, it's kind of like a chain reaction when you cause pressure on something, atom after atom, boom, 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 boom. It takes a while for that motion to actually propagate. Man, I really thought I was onto something then. It's a bit of a shame. Do you think you lose the moment by constantly thinking about the future? 100%. This is why meditation is so incredibly useful, and why I personally have spent thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours just focusing on the present moment. All of the sensations, thoughts, feelings, everything just happening right now. Another reason why psychedelics are so useful to me is because it forces me into the present moment. I just read that. What your diet consists of. Currently doing carnivore. I mean, I can't quite in the hotel quarantine, but yeah, I've been living a carnivore diet now, eating a carnivore diet now for quite a while. Now, some people are going to get triggered and butthurt here. This is not an ethical discussion. That's for another day. By the way, I'm all for lab-grown meat once it actually is nutritionally equivalent. In fact, I'll be an early adopter, but until it's not made of horse shit that's really bad for your health, I'm happy to, unfortunately, eat animals because I value my own health. I'm more selfish. As I said earlier in this Q&A, I'm selfish. And if I eat garbage food, carbs, my mental health deteriorates, my physical, these are facts, right? So I want to optimize for myself. And I can tell you guys for a fact, my personal experience, there is nothing that comes close to eating a carnivore diet. I know some of you are like freaking out. That's your issue. You haven't done your homework. You do not know enough about nutrition and science and our evolutionary history to really be having too much to say on this discussion yet. Just think about this for a while, right? Human beings have been around, call it 100,000 years, maybe 250,000 years. It's only in the last 8 or 10,000 years, maybe 12,000 years, we've had agriculture and been able to eat high concentrations of carbohydrates, and only in the last maybe 100 or 200 years that we've had sort of processed foods. So our bodies biologically have evolved to predominantly live off meat. And you go, oh no, hunter-gatherer, nuts and berries. Listen, dickhead. In terms of the total number of calories that we took in, it was pretty much exclusively from fatty meat, okay? You kill a gigantic 500 kilogram, 1 ton buffalo or whatever, that's going to feed you guys for a long ass time. Sure, there'll be a few little nuts and berries here and there as well, but the majority of the calories taken in, fatty meat. That's what our bodies have evolved to thrive on. And you can tell if you literally go carnivore, you will just immediately become unintentionally shredded and lose a huge amount of body fat, have massive amounts of energy and all sorts of other positives as well. It's funny, when you give your body what it's actually evolved to eat, it just thrives. So, and I know people are getting like a little bit butthurt and triggered here, but I'm just speaking the facts here. Like, I usually keep my mouth shut unless I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I'm telling you guys right now, given another 10 years, I was early on keto. I mean, I've been eating low carb for like probably, 12 or 13 years. Everyone thought I was mad at the time. That then evolved maybe 8 to 10, 7 years ago into keto and now onto carnivore. And of course, people are like, oh. So I'm going to tell you guys now, 10 years time, carnivore diet's going to be super popular. Lots of people, keto now is becoming popular. First it was low carb, now keto. Carnivore's next. I'm just telling you what's early because the health benefits are there. I've never felt as good, had as much energy, had as much clarity as well. There's just so many benefits out there as well. And again, the ethical thing is a totally different point. So is the financial thing. It's really fucking expensive. But for optimal health, I mean, I feel absolutely fucking amazing on the carnivore diet. And there's a lot of science there to back up why as well. And I got to tell you, like, for those of you who eat carbohydrates, like, stop being a fucking idiot. I mean that. Stop being a fucking idiot. You're poisoning yourself. You're adversely affecting your mental health, your mental agility, everything about eating this kind of food. It's bad for your body and it affects you physically, mentally, emotionally. It's not healthy. Now, if you're willing to suffer and like, if you're the kind of person that's okay to punch yourself in the face and whatever and live a suboptimal life and feel a bit shitty and be a bit more depressed sometimes, that's fine. You do you. And also take on the potential health consequences as well. Diabetes, heart disease, go for your life. But I'm just telling you, if you want to optimize and feel better, healthier, and stronger as well, get rid of carbs at an absolute minimum. And if you really want to optimize completely and you can afford to, try the carnivore diet, give it a try. You will see for yourself. And also, get some blood work done too, so you're not just kind of stabbing in the dark. Make sure you're actually seeing sort of before and after the effects, not just what you're sort of anecdotally experiencing, but also have some numbers to sort of back that up as well. You'll be surprised. What is something you have changed your mind about in the last year? Well, actually, so interesting. There's probably nothing I've changed my mind about, but I heard some really interesting discussions. I've been watching a podcast recently called Fresh Fit. It's funny, actually. So I don't know about, I don't know if you guys have heard of this thing called the red pill. I didn't really know about it until recently, but turns out I was basically born red pill. If you guys have heard of the what's it called, spinning plates. I don't really know a huge amount of this terminology. I haven't gone super down the rabbit hole, but I know enough to go, hang on, that's what I do. This concept of spinning plates, like dating women non-exclusively and rah, rah, rah. This is just naturally me, and I've always been mission focused, never been like of the simp mindset or anything like that. I never really had issues. I've always been surrounded by women expressing really high levels of interest in me. Probably that's just because every time I put my mind to something, I do quite well, and then there's the social, you guys get it, right? So, but I always want to learn more and just optimize. What's a new insight I can get? I found this podcast recently. I don't know how it came up my recommended, I think. And I watched this, and the guy said something incredibly controversial, and I was like, what the fuck, dude? But he explained, I'm like, hang on a minute. And it's really started to shift my perspective. So this is not something I plan to do, just to be clear, right? But he was talking about a sort of infidelity and cheating. He basically said that, since the dawn of time, women have been happy to share high-value men with other women versus have a low-value man exclusively. Now, let's be honest, okay? Most women are never going to be able to get a top 1% guy. Right? If she's not like stunningly attractive, super smart, very feminine, blah, 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 she's got no fucking chance anyway. But those top 1% guys, women value them so much, in general, by the way, that most women will be happy to share. I mean, think about kings and blah, blah, blah. You go back, superstars, athletes, whatever, you hear about these affairs here and there, and most of the stuff sort of stays behind closed doors. But he said something really interesting that got me thinking. And that was that men don't cheat, they have sex. Women cheat. And I'm like, what is he talking about? And then he goes on to explain. He says, you see, if a woman cheats on a guy, it's done, right? There has to be the emotional connection there. There's exceptions, some women can attach. But generally speaking, if a woman's sleeping with another guy, the relationship's done because she's now emotionally invested in this other guy. It's done. Whereas guys, generally speaking, we can detach from the emotion, so it's not the same. Now, I know it's unethical. You shouldn't do it. What I'm saying is they're not the same thing. This is the first time I'd ever heard that argument. I'm like, fuck, he's actually right. And also, this goes on, right? The guy said, the way that men show commitment is by providing security, right? Protect and provide. If he's providing for you, that's his form of showing commitment, providing resources, rah, 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 rah. Whereas women show their commitment through fidelity. And dude, my brain broke when he said this. I'm like, you know what? He's actually got a fucking point. Now think about this, right? Not everybody, but there's a ton of celebrities that you can think of now, like top 1% people, athletes, actors, whatever, musicians, whoever it is, who cheat on their partners. Sometimes it's out in the open, other times it's behind closed doors, and it's not something that they go and flaunt, but it's par for the course. And I get this now. Previously I thought, no, guys never cheat, that's terrible. But the dude's actually right. Like, if you're a top 1% guy, you got women throwing themselves at you all the time. A lot of guys will exercise those options. And the thing that I'm getting at here in terms of my mind changing, I guess, is that previously I kind of look at cheating from men and women from being absolutely equivalent. Like, you've gone outside of your relationship, you've had sex with somebody, it's exactly the same. But then I think about it and it's like, you know what? It's actually, it's not quite the same. And the guy gave a great example of this, right? He said, imagine, so this is the way to explain to a woman why men and women cheating aren't the same thing. So he says to a woman, ask the question, if you were about to get married, right? You're 5 years into a relationship, you're engaged, you're about to get married, and just before the wedding day, you see on your husband's phone or to-be husband's phone a message from a woman saying, hey, I need $1,200 for rent. And another one saying, hey, I need $500 for this or whatever. And dig through a little bit more, and she realizes that this guy's actually been providing resources to other women. If you ask this question to women, how would they feel? Well, almost every single one immediately says, I'm done. Relationship's over. I'm fucking done. They lose their shit. Interesting. Why? I mean, why is that? And that comes back to the way that men and women show commitment. If a guy is providing, that's his way of showing commitment to a woman. So if a woman sees a guy providing for another woman, that's a form of infidelity to her in her mind. And this is true. Like, I didn't think this it made sense, but when I see these women ask these questions, you're like, holy fuck, watch their reaction every fucking time. It's the same thing. And so this was a really interesting way of seeing some of the differences between how men and women show commitment, and also just really shifted my perspective in terms of, well, hang on, it's not probably the equivalent thing here. So eye-opening stuff. I always like to encounter challenging ideas. And the first time I heard this, I'm like, what the fuck, dude? But the more he explained his way through, I'm like, you know what? It's actually making a reasonable point here. So that's probably something that I've not necessarily changed my mind on, but had my mind opened up to the way things are. I personally would never cheat on a woman, never have, never will, but I understand now that there's certainly a difference between a man and a woman cheating, and the way that men and women show commitment being quite different. And this is why most women, I mean, you ask most women now, I've got to caveat this, if a woman sees herself as low value, you're not going to get the same answer as a woman who sees herself as high value. If you ask a high value woman, or one who perceives herself as high value, would you prefer a boring, average, bread and butter, blue collar husband, not exciting, but he's an okay provider and he's not going to cheat on you, rah, rah, rah? Or would you prefer to share a top 1% man with other women? Watch what happens. Here's what will happen. They'll pause. They'll go, that alone tells you the answer to the question. Some women will say the politically correct thing, especially women tend to be wired to sort of look for social cues, and you don't want to be ostracized from the group. So a lot of the time you'll get the politically correct answer, but just by the reaction when you ask the question, you can learn a lot. So hope you guys have enjoyed this. That's the last of the questions. And as I said, if you're interested in these kind of formats, the Q&A format, I do them very regularly on Patreon. So head over there and subscribe if you're not already, if you want more of this stuff. See you guys.